just type something. What's going on, guys? It's your bro here. Hope you're doing well. And in this video, I'm going to teach you guys how we can create a simple game of Pong using Java. So without further ado, let's get into it. If you find this video helpful, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Your support will help keep this channel running. Alright guys, so Pong, let's do it. Let's create a new project. File, new, Java project. I will call this just Pong.
25 in the first 3 hours from Mexico. Shot into the 9 and 26. At the halfway stage puts Indonesia a point ahead. Mexico really have to find their form here. There we go. Alejandro Valencia finding the centre of the target for the first time. Congratulating Valencia with her first 10. Talking Rahman through her shot and then finishing off with a 9. 52 set by Mexico. Indonesia on 56.
Go to your project folder. We're going to create a few different classes. So file, new class. I'll call my main class Pong game. And check public static void bin because this is going to contain our main method. Click finish.
Into the 8.
So what I'm going to do, I kind of like to separate a lot of my code into different classes just to help keep things organized and consistent. So I'm going to create another class just for the JFrame. So file, new class. I'll call this perhaps game frame. So game, make sure it's uppercase, game frame. That should be good. And then game panel, file, new class, game panel,
I know this is serious.
Finish.
This is serious stuff, but
what else do we got?
You've got to stick with your normal routines, the normal way you perform as a team, and I'm not sure that we've found that balance yet.
I think you're right, and it's curious to me that Ana Vasquez, who's the youngest member of the team by 6 years, is the one that sort of, if you like, being the conductor, she seems to be able to have a more friendly or certainly more happy conversation between her and her teammates. The other two just seem a little bit tense, Valencia and Roman, and they're running out of arrows here.
Yeah, I mean, Ida's one of the, you know, sort of comical archers on the tour. Really, she's fun. She'll come up to you. She'll have a giggle with you all the time. So she's just under immense pressure, and they've got to get Del back in here. They've got to win this set.
Well, there are the smiles you talked about. And now you can hear Ida Roman talking to Alejandra Valencia, who will kick things off in set number 3. Mexico staring down the barrel of a gun here. 4 set points to 0 down.
So we got paddles, so let's make a class called paddles. So file, new, class, maybe just paddle, singular, finish, file, new, class. We'll make a class for ball, finish, and then one last one for score. File, new, class, score, and finish. So all of these classes really aren't necessary, but that's just a habit of mine. I like to separate my code into different classes, just because you have like chunks of code for each separate like entity. Like we have everything related to ball within here, everything related to the score, to the paddle, game panel, etc. That's just what I like to do, but everybody has their own unique coding habits. Now it's about that time that we import everything that we need from the JRE system library. So there's 4 imports we'll need. Java.awt, import java.awt.event, java.util, and lastly javax.swing. So some of these classes won't necessarily use all of these. What I'm thinking copy these and paste it within each of these classes. Then at the end of the program, if there's anything that we don't need, we can just take it out from each class. But this is just to save time, so we're not importing things constantly. Okay, so that should be good then for our imports. So let's begin by creating all of the separate methods within each of these individual classes. So let's begin with the constructor for our game frame, because that's kind of like a special method. So with our game frame, we're going to create the constructor. It's the same name as the class, game frame. Let's create the constructor for our game panel. So game panel. Same thing with our paddle.
I didn't even dare to talk to my colleagues in English, let alone foreigners, because whenever I talked to them,
Ball.
they got confused and couldn't understand. Sometimes they
score.
even laugh at me. It made me very embarrassed. Right from the time I was graduated, I was
So let's
always
finish declaring
around
some of these
jobs.
methods. So there's
The
no
salary was
methods we'll
low,
need within
and the
our
workload
Pong
was
game
very
class,
busy.
none
No matter
within
how
our game
dedicated
frame,
I was,
but we do
I was
have
just
a
doing
bunch of
my
methods
job.
to declare
I keep
within
reading
our
about it.
game panel
Sometimes
class.
I do want
So
to
let's
try
create a
my
method
best at mining for foreign
called
companies.
new
But when I
ball.
was
So
interviewed
whenever
in
we
college,
call
I couldn't say
this
anything.
method, we'll
I
create
failed so
a new
many
ball on
times.
the screen.
It was really
And then
discouraging.
another for
We have
new
since
paddles.
studied English a lot. But
Public,
mostly I learned about
void,
grammar. I thought that if I
new
mastered English grammar, I could
paddles.
speak English easily.
So we
But
can
no,
call these
when it
methods if
comes
we
to
ever
English
want to
communication,
reset a
I
level
could speak
or a
naturally.
game.
Whenever I speak English, I was
We'll want a
randomly
paint
thinking
method,
about
so
how
we
the
can
sentence
paint
should
stuff
be
on the
arranged.
screen.
Should I
So
choose this word or
public
not?
void
Which
paint,
tense in this
and there
case,
is
probably
one
because I learned
parameter
only
here,
the theories and never
graphics,
practiced reflex
and we'll
sets.
call it G.
And there are only Thai people around me, so I didn't
And
have
we
much
want
chance to practice. I also love listening to English music, watching English movies, but I only heard a few words, so I couldn't understand the content. When I watched them without subtitles, it was completely beyond me. Helpless with self-studying, I have already tried to go to English center, but it didn't work. Each course cost more than 10,000 baht, kinda expensive, and I couldn't afford it. So my English speaking skill was still poor. There were times I completely lost my trust in those English courses. Then it came to my mind that maybe I would never get any promotion, no matter how hard I try. But it seems that I still lucky though. I have a best friend. Before, he used to be as bad at English as me. But only few months, his life changed completely. I could see him traveling abroad, discussing business with foreign companies, being too curious, so I
Java
asked him. Then I was
X
introduced to an
swing.
effective online English course, which is
So
the
some
course
of these
that changed my
classes
life.
won't
That is
necessarily use all of these. What I'm thinking we can do is just copy these and paste it within each of these classes. Then at the end of the program, if there's anything that we don't need, we can just take it out from each class. But this is just to save time, so we're not importing things constantly. Okay, so that should be good then for our imports. So let's begin by creating all of the separate methods within each of these individual classes. So let's begin with the constructor for
rapid response. As its name, it helps you to react quickly when you hear English. Exactly 3 techniques needed to master English skills. Ink breaking is also extremely supportive, you know. Self-study learners often easily fall into disorientation. So ink breaking especially prepare an action plan notebook for you. You don't have to worry about where to start, what to study. You just need to open this action plan and follow it. Another good point of ink breaking is that there are 2 modes in audio files. The first one is slow speed for learners to get used to the pronunciation of sentences and to hear each word clearly.
Hey, Peter? How's it going?
Hi, Anna. Good. How are you?
The second one is the native speaker speed, so we can practice speaking in intonation and get used to that speed.
Hey, Peter! How's it going?
Hi, Anna. Good. How are you?
There's also self-speed function for higher lesson. I usually use this function to practice at a moderate speed, then gradually increase it up. Is it very convenient to study? Don't think that no one cares about you when you study online like that. Ink Breaking's education board will take care of you daily learning. How do you learn?
2 tahun yang lalu, mantan pramuniaga berusia 32 tahun ini tinggal bersama neneknya dan tak mampu membeli sebuah mobil. Namun, hanya dalam waktu 6 bulan menjalankan bisnis dengan penjualan produk miliknya sendiri di Facebook dan Shopee, Faizan memperoleh cukup uang untuk membeli perumahan hanya karena bosan. Belanja online sedang naik daun dan Faizan memulai bisnisnya yang sukses dengan ponsel miliknya sembari tangan satunya mencuci piring. Setahun lalu, Faizan bahkan tidak mengerti apapun soal berjualan online.
Namun menurutnya, ide dasarnya sederhana.
void draw. This has a argument or parameter of graphics G. And we're good. Let's move on to the ball class. Okay, so we have set X direction. Basically with our paddles, they're only going to be moving up and down, so we're only going to set the Y direction. We don't have to worry about the X axis, but the ball has, well, it travels on the X axis as well as the Y axis. So we'll need a set X direction as well as set Y. So public void set X direction. And this will take an integer value and we'll call it random X direction, because when we create a new ball, it's going to go in a random direction. So we'll set up an instance of the random class to take care of that. So set X direction as well as set Y direction. And change that here as well. Int random Y direction. And then a move method, so public void move. And then a draw method, so public void, that is draw, and this has graphics G. And then lastly, our score class. So we only have one method within here, well, besides our constructor. We're only going to draw the score. We don't need it to move or anything, so public void draw. This takes graphics G. So moving on, with a few of our classes, we're going to turn these into So moving on, with a few of our classes, that is draw, and this has graphics G. And then lastly, our score class. So Y-axis. So we'll need we're going to be adding this action listener to our game panel, and then we're going to call the appropriate key pressed method or key released of our paddle. So key pressed as well as key released. And then we will want a method called direction. And this will take an integer value and we'll call it random x direction, because when we create a new ball, it's going to go in a random direction. So we'll set up an instance of the random class to take care of that. So set x direction as well as set y direction. And change that here as well. Int random y direction. And then a move method, so public void move. And then a draw method, so public void, that is draw, and this has graphics G. And then lastly, our score class. So we only have one method within here, well, besides our constructor. We're only going to draw the score. We don't need it to move or anything, so public void draw. This takes graphics G. So moving on, with a few of our classes, we're going to turn these into subclasses. So let's begin with our game frame. So next to the declaration, let's have this extends the JFrame class. So we can treat our game frame as a JFrame basically. Our game panel will extends J panel, and it's also going to implement the runnable interface, so we can actually have this run on a thread. So paddle will extend rectangle. Same thing for ball, extends rectangle. And same thing for score, extends rectangle. So let's head back to our Pong game class, and we'll start here and then work our way over to the right hand. So we only have one method within here, well, besides our constructor. We're on the way over to the right and click there. Extends rectangle. So let's head back to our Pong game class, and we'll start angle. Same thing for ball. Runnable interface, so we can actually have this run on a thread. So paddle will extend rectangle. Same. ball, extends, rectangle, and same thing for score, extends, rectangle. So let's head back to our Pong game class, and we'll start here and then work our way over to the right and declare and instantiate basically most of the things that we'll need throughout the rest of this program. So beginning with our Pong game class, we're going to create an instance of our game frame. The game frame is going to hold a game panel. So the game frame is basically the window frame that has the minimize button, maximize, the X button, all that cool stuff. So let's create an instance of the game frame. So game frame, I'll call this frame, equals new game frame. And the game frame is going to hold a game panel. So the game frame is basically the window frame that has the minimize button, maximize, the X button, all that cool stuff. So let's create an instance of the game frame. So game frame, I'll call this frame, equals new game frame. And that's it for this class. Let's move on to our game frame. And before the constructor, we're going to create an instance of the game panel class. So game panel, we'll call this panel, equals new game panel. And then within our game panel class, we have quite a few things to declare within here. So we'll create a static final integer variable called game_width. And let's set this to 1000. That's a good size. So let me explain some of my reasoning for using the game panel. And then within our game panel class, we have quite a few things to declare within here. So we'll create a static final integer variable called game_width. And let's past videos in this tutorial series, we really haven't used this really relevant to the topics we were discussing, but since we're starting to get into games a little bit more, I thought it'd be a good time to reintroduce it. The dimensions for a standard ping pong table, and it has a ratio of 5 to 9, 5 feet to 9 feet. So I'm actually going to copy that ratio. So we'll take our game width and multiply this by our ratio, 5 divided by 9. And then I'm going to cast this as an integer. So this will give us a corresponding height to our game width, and if we were to actually change our game width, the the game height would adjust accordingly to whatever we assign for our game width. So let's also create a dimension. So static, final, dimension. We'll call this screen underscore size equals new dimension. variables to declare. So before the constructor, we'll declare an int called ID. Okay guys, so let's head back to our Pong game. So we're pretty much done with this class. There's nothing else that we need to do, so...
Ông làm đi cả đi nha.
Let's move on to game frame next. So, the game panel is going to be the canvas on which we're painting, and the frame is kind of like the frame around the painting. Houses our panel, so it kind of contains that minimize button, that maximize button, that X button. So that's our jam frame basically. So the panel is going to be surrounded with the frame. And actually just one quick change that I want to make real quick is that I want to finish instantiating this instance within my constructor. Alright, so let's add our game panel our frame. So this dot add panel. And let's set a title. This dot set title Pong game. And we do not want people to resize this, so this dot set resizable false.